Hey, Chris Lipe here. I want to simplify screaming in terms of how it should feel and how we should think about it. There are so many terms and definitions, fry scream, false chord. Oh, that was definitely false chord. Well, that was definitely fry, or growl, or all these things. And I think a lot of times, especially for those people who are trying to scream, we get hung up on defining and classifying, and it's frustrating because at some point things become more academic than they do experiential, right? But singing is not an academic thing, it's an experiential thing. And that's what we really need to keep in mind. I recently went for my annual throat scope, where they stick a camera through my nose and down and look at my vocal cords. I do this every year as sort of a routine, how's everything looking? Are we, how are my allergies doing? Is my acid reflux being kept at bay? And do my vocal cords look great? And they always have. But there have been some things for me to watch out for in terms of, acid reflux, and allergies are the main things that I end up fighting. But I was having a great conversation with the doctor, and I was making some sounds while he had the scope down there because I was having some fun and just kind of watching what my vocal cords did. And it was neat to have someone who studies the anatomy be right there as I was making these sounds. And one thing that he opened my eyes to in sort of a different way is the amount of involvement that our false chords have all the time for like normal things. And it got me thinking about how when we classify something as a false chord scream, some people are sort of implying that a fry scream can't or doesn't include false chords, or aggressive distortion or grit doesn't include false chords. That's patently false. Did you get that? Yeah, it's not true, right? We are using our false chords for all sorts of sounds and all sorts of tasks. When we hold our breath, when we hold back air and add compression, that's false chord, right? When we use grit, when we do that, we are utilizing, if we're doing it right, our false chords. We're squeezing them in slightly different ways. And this is the other thing that really gets people in kind of a tizzy. Oh, we shouldn't be singing with tension. We need to be completely limp all the time. Well, we don't need to be limp all the time. We can be intense without being tense, right? So we can squeeze our neck in certain ways, yeah, and still engage in ways that are not tension-based, right? That was intense, what I just did, and I was engaging my false chords, but also engaging my primary, my true chords, right? A note, a well-supported mixed note, yes, and then I'm going to, by allowing my break to happen, I am letting air through my vocal cords for a split second without phonating, without complete chord closure. And that creates a burst of air, which if I'm using my false chords correctly, it creates that wonderful sound, right? But it's because we have different chord closure than when we're That's why that works. We're allowing more air through our true chords and making it work that way. Now, a lot of people will say, well, a false chord scream, the chords are completely open, and a fry scream you're phonating with your chords. And I would in general agree with this approach, but I almost want to not care. And I don't say that to be derogatory or anything. I just think that the feel and the sort of things that we want to approach, let's get familiar with where our notes should resonate from. Our notes, well, the sound is being created from our vocal cords, but the vocal cords themselves don't actually do much. It's a little bit like a record player, when you put a record on and you listen without your stereo system on at all, and you go down and you listen to the needle, and you can hear the song, but there's no resonance happening, right? Now, resonance in a record player happens with electrical things and amplification and stuff like that, but that's what all our cavities do, right? They help resonate and amplify in different ways. It's like a big horn, they look like a gramophone. It's a similar idea or mindset that we can have in terms of the role that our vocal cords play. And so the other things that we're doing with our face, our nasal cavity, our false chords, all these other things are helping to shape the sound in a way that, if done without bringing other muscles that don't need to be brought in, if done in that way, we can generate a really cool, intense sound without being tense. So I know I've covered a lot of things, and I know I've discussed quite a few things here. But the important thing I want everybody to walk away with, and myself included, is that the sounds that we make need to be evaluated first by a feel perspective. How do things feel? It's okay to have definitions. It's okay to have, I mean, this is a finger, right? What would I call it if I didn't call it a finger? Well, it's called a finger. Why don't I just call it a finger? That sort of, that's fine. But when we start debating in our mind, well, was that this kind of thing or was that this kind of thing? Or rather, was I able to make that sound, and how did I feel? And where did I feel it coming from? Above my vocal cords? Was the grit coming from above my vocal cords? Great. Did it feel like it was centered lower? Okay. Was my speech affected right after I made the sound? If it was, you're not doing something right? Like if I do if I do that and can't immediately go back to my normal speech voice. Now here's an example the other way. Now it takes me a minute to get that back, get my normal speech. And if I were to do that I even taste it, just not really a cool thing to do there. But that was a different sound, a Cookie Monster sort of thing. And it really doesn't feel right. Now I could sort of talk myself into, it's okay, I can do that for a long time. But what ends up happening is we end up creating imbalances, muscular imbalances, and even, eventually vocal fold imbalances that will make our vocal cords not perform as flexibly and as versatilely. So evaluating our feel is really what we want to do. Now, if I go back to this idea that I'm clean, high mix, see some of my other videos on mixed voice if you want to learn how to make that sound. Now, doing that doesn't trigger any sort of pain, and I definitely feel it in terms of a resonating or a vibration, but it doesn't register as something that feels poorly. Now, if I do that a lot, am I going to get hoarse? No, I'm not going to get hoarse. I am going to dry out my throat. And drying out your throat's fine. That's what water's for. And have a lot of it while you're practicing. So the next time you go to sing, the next time you go to scream, I want you to be intensely introspective as to where things are coming from. Realize that your false chords, the area above your primary vocal cords in your neck, you're going to get that involved. It's going to be intense. You're going to use a lot of air. And more on that in my course, the free course that you can click the link below to join. But your support muscles being dialed in and firm, like you're pooping, is extremely important when you're doing all of these things, because it does focus our energy in a certain way that allows us to be free to be intense without being tense. So the support is a huge thing. But the next time you're practicing this, take notes and realize that it's okay to engage your neck in a certain way using the false chord area. It actually saves your vocal cords, your primary chords, your true chords. It saves them from damage because you're getting that intensity in the right way. Because your false chords are used to hold back air, that's their primary, when we are underwater and we're holding our breath, that's the area that's closed. It's not the ones that are actually making sound. It's a very important mental distinction for us to make as we sing, because those false chord areas are much more robust, and they're designed to. That's what they're designed for. And the sound that you hear on top of that is the air passing through our primary folds. Pretty neat. So this is not a typical singing lesson, but it's definitely a mindset and perspective thing. Keep this stuff in mind as you practice some of the other things that I've done on this channel, as you're working on songs, as you're doing all sorts of stuff. Be sure to check out my other videos on this channel on mixed voice and screaming. And again, be sure to click the link below and join my free vocal course. We'll see you for more.